Hey everybody. In this lesson, I'm going to go over color grading and exposure. More importantly, in this particular case, this shot here is a night scene. Now, typically you'd see something like this and you'd think, okay, I'd want to shoot this with mostly dark room. Maybe put a spotlight here for this highlight, and then a lamp on the desk, and just shoot this as is. It might be a little dark and I might get some grain, but I'll get something that looks like it was shot at night. But in this particular case, that's not how this was shot. This is the actual raw footage right here. You can see that it's extremely well lit. We've got a 250 watt bulb and a lamp here on the desk. We've got a 20 watt, 2-foot Kino flow, not really a Kino flow, just an off the shelf fluorescent light on the floor to bounce this light up into his eyes. You can see the highlight. We have a 650 Fresnel over here with a gel on it, and then another, I think 200 watt light to make this, be turning all this back here blue. And then this was shot within a 4-stop range. A lot of people hear me say that and they're like, what do you mean 4-stop range? Well, what I mean is that nothing in this scene is more than 2 stops over ±0 on my in-camera meter, and nothing is below 2 stops under ±0. Which is the ideal range to shoot for a DSLR. If you've got, doesn't matter if it's a 5D or a 7D or a GH2 or whatever DSLR you're shooting with, you want to fit everything within that 4-stop range. And somebody might be thinking, but I've got a 7D, I've got 11 stops. Well, technically yes, but really no, you don't. Same thing with the GH2. Some people say 10.5, some people say 9. Let's face it, you've really got about 6 stops. Anything above or below 6 stops is just mud and murk, and sometimes people call it gravy. So if I had exposed this shot like this when I was shooting it, I would have all kinds, especially on a 5D or 7D where you've got major macro blocking problems. You would have a ton of noise and gunk going on here, even on a hacked GH2. This was shot on a hacked GH2 using Quantum 9B. So I didn't get a lot of noise. I've got a really nice looking image here, but with your lower bitrate cameras like your 5D, 7D, etc., where you're shooting 18 megabits per second or 24 megabits per second, depending on which camera you're using, you've got to be really, really careful to get it within that 4-stop range. Otherwise, you're really going to start picking up a lot of junk. So let's go into Final Cut here, and let's take a look at this image. Here it is. And if you look down here, the 4-stop range I'm talking about, now let me stop for a second. If you're shooting with one of the bigger cameras, if you're shooting with, let's say you're shooting on film, or you're shooting on a Red, any one of the Red cameras, or you're shooting on an Alexa or an F65 or an F35, any one of those big Sony cameras, you've got a little bit more than 4 stops. And what I mean by that is there's about 4 stops of exposure between 80%. This is a waveform monitor here. This measures luminance. Most cameras peak out at pure white at 100 and pure black at 0. And so at 80%, everything above 80% is going to be, well, you're not going to have a lot of detail. It's going to be what we call blown out highlights. And when you hit 100, it's purely blown out. There's 0 highlight. It's just pure white. But everything above 80 is going to be just going to be blown out and washed out. Anything below 20 is going to look muddy, murky. You're going to start picking up grain. If you're shooting on a Canon camera, you're going to start picking up macro blocking, which is huge, which looks like just huge chunks of dirt in your image down here. But anything above 20 and below 80 fits within a 4-stop range. 2 stops above 50 and 2 stops below 50. It's a really nice range. It's really sweet. And if you look at the original image, which is right here, you can see pretty much between 80 and 20. I've got a little bit down here, but that doesn't really matter because this stuff is black. It's actual, black here and the glasses and the phone, and I don't care if that drops below because when I crush it down, it's just going to go black anyway, which is where I want it. So I'm not really worried about that being too dark. But my skin tone is here. You can see right in between 50 and about 65, which is perfect. Perfect exposure, and coming down into the shadows here in his eye socket and here next to his cheek, the skin tone drops all the way down to about 30. So between 30 and 65, it's 35. It's about 15 to 16 IRE per stop. It's a 2-stop range. It's a 4-to-1 ratio. It's exactly what we were going for, because I know 4-to-1 crushes down to 8-to-1 really nicely. Now this was graded in ColorGhear for After Effects. Those of you who are subscribed to ColorGhear already have the plugin and are already using it. If not, there is some really great tutorials over there. There's if we go over to here, you can see this is all the color grading tutorials where I teach you how to use ColorGhear for After Effects. Right now it's only available for After Effects. There will be versions for DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro, hopefully before the end of the summer, if I get more time to get those programmed. But also, if you're just interested in like cinematography, production design, all that sort of stuff, right now we've got the ColorGhear Film School, and this, for right now, you can see what we've got so far. Experimentation, exposure, metering, how to use a light meter, contrast, 3-point lighting, your key light, rim light, fill light, background light, and then some more coming, intensity and fall off, the zone system, where I will teach you how to use the Ansel Adams Zone System, which in a way is what I'm doing here. The zone system is divided up into 10 zones. From 0 to 10 is 1, 10 to 22, so on and so forth till you get to 100. That's your 10 zones. But the zones that you want to fit them in are between zone 2, which is 20, and zone, was it 7 or 8 up here, and 80. So a lot of photographers try to go just between 7 and 30. If you can fit it in 7 to 3, zone 7 and 3, you're in pretty good shape. But once you get to the top of zone 7, you're pretty much at 80, and the bottom of 3, you're pretty much at 20. So if you see any documentation on that, or if you talk to somebody, or if you're familiar with the zone system, that's pretty much what I'm talking about. But despite what the salesman will tell you about the dynamic range of your camera, you really, best case scenario, if you can fit everything within that 4-stop range, 2 stops over, 2 stops under, you're going to be golden. You're going to have fantastic looking footage. You're going to be able to grade the hell out of it, and you won't have to worry so much about grain or macro blocking or any of that stuff. So let's look at this shot over here. Now let me go back for a second. Now if I'd shot this, my waveform looked like this when I was shooting it, and I'm shooting on a DSLR, I might get an okay image. It depends, but more likely than not, I'm going to get an image that's really grainy, really muddy, and not very usable. I'm not going to be able to do much with it in post. I'm not going to be able to color correct it a lot. Or in some cases at all. So, like I said, get it up here in the middle range. But let's look at some of these other shots. You can see here, same thing, between 80 and 20. I've got some stuff falling down, but this right here is just this black line here where the drawer is. These things here are just little dark spots, like here along the neckline, and these shadows here. And then, of course, the dark spots on this here is all falling down over here, and that's fine because I don't care what those look like. Those are just background anyway. I'm worried about his face, and I've got a nice 4-to-1 ratio between the highlights and the key and the shadows on his face, and this grades out to a nice 8-to-1 from 4-to-1. And now I've got an image that's stretched all the way across from down here around 10 all the way up to 90. Really beautiful looking. Same thing with this image here. This is I knew this was going to blow out to white. That's okay. And then I knew that my floor and all this stuff down here, which we wanted to hide this, there's a cord right here you can see. So I didn't care if this crushed down. So I exposed it down here in the muddy range, which is okay because it's just going to crush out the black. But I've got their faces here within the range. We've got the little bit of blown out highlight here, and a little bit on her face, but for the most part I've got their faces exposed here in the nice meaty range, 60, 65, no more than 70. The walls, the green walls, are reading out around here, which is great. That's why they paint these walls this color, is so they don't compete with skin tone. And then it grades out to this really nice, supposed to be a dark scene, in a morgue hospital in the middle of a night. But this was shot on a soundstage in Anaheim. So for those of you who are subscribed to ColorGhear, there's another version of this tutorial that will cover this full gamut of shooting on the GH2, or any DSLR really, and your exposure range and how it correlates to your waveform monitor. And this is covers the full spectrum of what your camera will do. All 6 stops. Yes, I said all 6 stops. And you can see there's a few extra that you get. There's -3 and then 3 plus there, and then another one down to 16, which is just complete garbage. The camera will expose down there, but it's garbage. It's useless. Same thing up here, except when you hit 3, you're blown out. You don't want this. It's all useless. Look how all your highlights up here. Anyway, so that should be up. I've got a bunch of stuff I got to do before Comic-Con. Comic-Con gets done on the 15th. It'll take me 3 days to recuperate from that. So towards the end of July, be looking for that for ColorGear users. If you're not a ColorGear subscriber, you can check it out. It is, oops, wrong one. It's $50 for membership for 1 year. With that, you get the ColorGear plugin for After Effects. With your membership, you get to keep that. That's good forever. But then you get 1 year of access to the website, all the tutorials. I'll be putting more up as we go along. And then for those of you who are users, I put the Speed Grade Skin LUT up yesterday, and I used that here on his skin to give it a little bit more of a more organic feel. You can see here that it's really magenta and pink. I was color correcting in camera to try and get rid of some of the green that you sometimes get with the GH2, but as a result, I just didn't have the skin tone didn't look natural, and so I created this LUT in Speed Grade that you can import into After Effects and use it and mix it accordingly to get something that's a little nicer looking skin tone, like this. Anyway, that's it. Subscribe if you want to learn more. It's right down here, colorgear.com, and plenty of useful information. The film school will expand. We're working on some things right now. We're going to have some production designers coming in to show us how to do some production design. Have some costume makers, some special effects makeup guys. I got an animator. I've got a friend of mine who works on Family Guy who's going to come in and talk to you about how things work in animation. So if you're interested in animation, you'll find out that the chain of command and the workflow in animation is completely different from that of live action film. And I didn't realize how much so until I actually went to go visit the office the other day and got to see just how everything works. And it's just an amazing, complicated process. And so if you're interested in animation, I'll have my friend Jake stopping by to talk to you about that. And that's it. Go shoot something great.